What if I told you that the richest man in Abuja fell completely, hopelessly in love with a tomato seller at Garki market? What if I told you that she loved him back just as deeply? And what if I told you that everything they thought they knew about each other was a lie? This is the story of Raymond and Ada, two people who were both running from the same thing while searching for the same thing. A love story so beautiful, so ironic, and so heartbreaking that it will change how you think about wealth, authenticity, and what we're really looking for when we say we want someone to love us for who we truly are. If you believe that real love can be found in the most unexpected places, hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to tell you proves that sometimes the most genuine connections happen when we strip away everything we think makes us valuable. Let me take you into the world of Raymond Uzoma. Picture the heart of bustling Abuja, where billionaires wear agbada with gold chains, where wealth speaks louder than truth, where your bank account determines your worth. In this world lived a man named Raymond Uzoma. And Raymond? He was rich. Wildly, impossibly rich. Oil companies, real estate empires, fintech startups. If there was money to be made in Nigeria, Raymond owned a piece of it. His penthouse overlooked the entire city. His garage housed more cars than most dealerships. His name opened doors that others couldn't even find. But despite all this wealth, all this power, all this success, Raymond had no peace, none whatsoever, because every woman he met wanted his wallet, not his heart. Every conversation started with, "What do you drive?" Every date ended with hints about expensive gifts. Every relationship felt like a business transaction where his feelings were the currency and his bank account was the prize. Raymond had learned to spot the signs from miles away. The way their eyes lit up when they saw his watch. The way they suddenly became more interested when they heard his last name. The way they talked about love, but only seemed to love what he could provide. He tried everything. Dating apps, where he didn't mention his wealth. Meeting women through friends who promised they were different. Even giving fake names and occupations, just to see if anyone would be interested in Raymond the person, not Raymond the brand. But somehow his wealth always leaked through. A restaurant that was too expensive, a car that was too flashy, a lifestyle that was impossible to hide completely. At 34, Raymond was tired, soul-deep, bone-weary tired of being loved for everything except who he actually was. Until he met Ada. It was a random Tuesday morning when his cook called in sick and Raymond found himself without his usual gourmet breakfast. His driver suggested stopping by Garki market to grab some fresh tomatoes for a simple meal. Raymond had never set foot in a local market. His food came from high-end grocery stores, his vegetables pre-packaged and perfectly arranged. But something about the authenticity of it appealed to him that morning. So there he was, this billionaire in designer clothes, standing awkwardly in the middle of Garki market, completely out of his element. And that's when he saw her. Ada was beautiful, but not in the polished way he was used to. She was covered in a fine layer of dust from the day's work. Selling tomatoes with a voice that could be heard 3 stalls away, wearing a simple wrapper that had seen better days, her palms calloused from years of handling goods and counting naira notes. No makeup, no designer anything, no filters or facades. But when she spoke, her words were pure gold. Raymond approached her stall, trying to look like he belonged. "How much for the tomatoes?" Ada looked up at him and immediately saw right through his awkward attempt at fitting in. This man had clearly never bought tomatoes in his life. "Ogre, she said with a knowing smile. "You look like the type who sends his driver to buy vegetables. What are you really doing here?" Raymond was caught off guard by her directness. Most people either feared him or tried to impress him. This woman was simply real. "I needed tomatoes," he said lamely. "You need tomatoes like I need a private jet," Ada laughed. "But I'll sell them to you anyway. Just promise me you won't try to negotiate with me, like this is some corporate boardroom." Something about her pierced him. She reminded him of his mother, strong, wise, not easily moved by money or status. His mother had died when he was young, but he remembered her no-nonsense attitude, her ability to see through people's pretenses. Raymond bought the tomatoes, paid without haggling, and found himself lingering at her stall longer than necessary. "You want some advice, Ogre?" Ada said, as she handed him his change. "I'm listening." "If you want love, start with trust, not price tag. Real love isn't something you can buy in a fancy store. It grows in places like this, messy, real, authentic." Raymond walked away that day, thinking about those words. He couldn't get her out of his head, so he returned, again and again, buying tomatoes he didn't need. Asking questions she answered with wit and sarcasm, learning about her day, her dreams, her philosophy on life. Ada found herself looking forward to his visits. This strange man who clearly didn't belong in the market, but kept coming back anyway. He never talked about money, never bragged about possessions. He asked about her thoughts, her opinions, her hopes. "Why do you keep coming here?" she asked him one afternoon. "You could buy tomatoes anywhere." "Because nowhere else do I get wisdom with my vegetables," Raymond replied. She laughed, a sound that became his favorite thing to hear. "What do you do for work?" she asked during one of their conversations. Raymond hesitated. He'd gotten so used to lying about his job to avoid gold diggers. "I work in business, import and export." "Ah, so you're one of those Lagos big boys who comes to Abuja to show off." "Something like that," he said, hating himself for the lie, but terrified of losing this connection. As weeks turned into months, Raymond found himself falling. Slowly at first, then all at once. Ada was unlike anyone he'd ever met. She was intelligent without being pretentious, funny without being cruel, beautiful without being vain. She talked about her dreams of expanding her business, maybe opening a proper shop someday. She spoke about her family back in the village, how she sent money home every month. She shared her fears, her hopes, her genuine thoughts about life. And for the first time in years, Raymond felt seen, not for his money, not for his status, but for who he was when all the wealth was stripped away. But Ada was hiding a secret too, a secret just as big as Raymond's. Her real name wasn't Ada, it was Chidinma, and she wasn't poor. She was the only daughter of Chief Okonkwo of Enugu, a billionaire in his own right, with vast cocoa plantations and shipping companies that spanned across West Africa. Chidinma had disguised herself, had chosen the name Ada and the life of a market trader because she was tired too. Tired of men who saw her as a trophy, a connection to her father's wealth, a business opportunity disguised as romance. Men see a rich girl and think prize to be won, she had told her father when she left Enugu. I want to know who would love me for me. She'd been living this double life for 2 years, working in the market, living modestly, sending money home, not because she needed to, but because it maintained her cover story. And for the first time since she'd started this experiment, she'd met a man who didn't brag, didn't chase status, didn't try to impress her with things he owned. Raymond was gentle, thoughtful, genuinely interested in her thoughts and dreams. She wanted to tell him the truth. The guilt was eating at her, especially as she watched him struggle with his own deception about his work. But she was terrified. What if he felt betrayed? What if he thought she was just another rich girl playing games? What if the thing between them was too fragile to survive the truth? Then one day, her carefully constructed world came crashing down. Raymond had come to the market earlier than usual. Ada wasn't at her stall yet, but he could hear her voice from behind the stalls where vendors sometimes took private phone calls. He was about to call out to her when he heard her speaking in perfect, crisp English, not the market pidgin she usually used with customers. "Daddy, I've found someone," she was saying into her phone. "He thinks I'm just a tomato seller, but he sees my soul. I'm scared to lose him." A pause. "No, Daddy, I don't want you to investigate him. This isn't about business. This is about love, real love." Another pause. "I know the risks, but I've never felt this way about anyone. He's kind, Daddy. He's genuine. He doesn't know about our money, and he doesn't care about impressing me with his." Raymond's world stopped spinning. The woman he'd fallen in love with, the woman who taught him about authenticity and trust, had been lying to him this entire time. He felt like the biggest fool in Nigeria. Here he was, thinking he'd finally found someone genuine, someone real, and she was just another rich girl playing dress-up. The betrayal cut deeper than any gold digger's rejection ever had, because this time he'd believed. This time he'd opened his heart completely. Without making a sound, Raymond turned and walked away. Ada never knew he'd heard the conversation. When she got to her stall 20 minutes later, she found the usual spot where Raymond would be waiting empty. She thought maybe he was running late. Then she thought maybe he was sick. By the end of the week, she was worried. By the end of the month, she was heartbroken. For 3 months, Chidinma couldn't find him. She'd never gotten his full name, never knew exactly where he worked. He'd been as mysterious about his details as she'd been about hers. She tried everything. She went to all the upscale areas where someone in import and export might work. She asked other market vendors if they'd seen him. She even considered having her father's people track him down. But something about that felt like a violation of everything they'd shared. Every day, she hoped he'd walk back into the market. Every day, she was disappointed. She started to think she'd lost the only man who'd ever loved her for who she really was. And the cruel irony was that neither of them had been showing their real selves at all. Meanwhile, Raymond was going through his own hell. He'd returned to his penthouse, his board meetings, his wealthy social circle, but everything felt hollow. He kept thinking about Ada's laugh, her wisdom, the way she'd made him feel human again. He missed her so deeply, it was like a physical ache. But every time he thought about going back to find her, the memory of that phone conversation stopped him. She'd played him just like everyone else. Maybe the approach was different, but the deception was the same. His friends noticed the change in him. "You've been different for months," his business partner told him. "What happened?" "I fell in love with someone who wasn't real," Raymond replied. "Join the club," his friend laughed. "Half the women in Abuja are wearing fake everything." But that wasn't it, and Raymond knew it. The problem wasn't that Ada was fake. The problem was that he'd finally found something real, and it had been built on lies, lies from both of them. 3 months after that devastating phone call, Raymond found himself in a place he rarely visited anymore: church. He wasn't particularly religious, but grief and confusion had driven him to seek something beyond himself. He'd been raised going to church with his mother, and in his pain, he found himself drawn back to that comfort. It was evening service at Redeemed Christian Church in Victoria Island. Raymond sat in the back, hoping for some kind of clarity, some peace about the situation. He was on his knees during prayer time, not really praying for anything specific, just trying to quiet the chaos in his heart. God, he whispered, I don't know what lesson I was supposed to learn from this, but it hurts. Show me how to trust again. Show me how to love again. When he opened his eyes and lifted his head, he saw her. Ada, or whoever she really was walking down the aisle toward the altar. She was dressed simply, beautifully, her hair uncovered. She looked as lost as he felt. Their eyes met across the crowded church, and the entire world seemed to stop. She froze halfway down the aisle. He remained on his knees, staring at her like she was a vision. Slowly, carefully, as if approaching a wounded animal, she walked toward him. The congregation continued praying around them, unaware of the drama unfolding in their midst. She knelt beside him, her eyes already filling with tears. I can explain, she whispered. Raymond looked into her eyes, those same eyes that had captivated him in the market, that had seen through his pretenses, that had looked at him with such genuine affection. And he whispered back, You lied to me, but you also showed me the kind of woman I could build a future with. My name is Chidinma, she said, tears streaming down her face. My father is Chief Okonkwo. I've been pretending to be poor because I wanted someone to love me, not my inheritance. Raymond closed his eyes, processing this. When he opened them, he said, My name is Raymond Uzoma. I own half the businesses in the city. I've been pretending to be ordinary because I wanted someone to want me, not my money. They knelt there in that church, two wealthy people who had found each other while pretending to be something they weren't, realizing that their deception had come from the exact same fear. We're both idiots, Chidinma whispered. The richest idiots in Nigeria, Raymond agreed. And despite everything, despite the lies and the pain and the months of separation, they started to laugh. People in the church began to look at them strangely. Two people laughing through their tears during prayer time. But they didn't care. Can we start over? Raymond asked. No lies this time, no games, just us? Can you forgive me for lying to you? Can you forgive me for being a hypocrite who lied about lying? They helped each other stand up, walked out of that church together, and started again. No pretenses this time. No false identities. Just Raymond and Chidinma, two people who had found love in a tomato stall and almost lost it to fear. They spent the next months really getting to know each other. Raymond learned about her childhood in Enugu, her struggles with her father's expectations, her genuine love for the market community she'd become part of. Chidinma learned about Raymond's business empire, his loneliness despite his success, his mother's influence on his values. They discovered that everything they'd loved about each other in the market was real. The personalities, the humor, the connection, none of that had been fake. Only the circumstances had been fabricated. Raymond started spending time at the market, not as a customer, but as Chidinma's partner. He learned the business, met the other vendors, understood the community that had shaped the woman he loved. Chidinma visited Raymond's world too, the boardrooms, the charity galas, the high society functions. She brought her market wisdom into his corporate sphere, keeping him grounded when the wealth threatened to isolate him again. When they finally got engaged, Raymond proposed not in an expensive restaurant or exotic location, but right there in Garki market, surrounded by tomatoes and the community that had brought them together. And when they got married, the wedding was a beautiful blend of both their worlds. Chief Okonkwo flew in from Enugu with half of the southeastern elite. Raymond's business associates came from Lagos and Abuja, but the ceremony was held outdoors, decorated with simple, beautiful elements that honored both their authentic selves. And Chidinma's wedding dress? It wasn't covered in diamonds or imported lace. She wore tomatoes, beautiful, symbolic tomatoes woven into her headpiece and bouquet, because that's where their love began, in honesty that grew from deception, in truth that emerged from lies, in a love that was real even when everything else was fake. You know what this story teaches us? It's not about the money. It's not about the status. It's about the fact that we're all afraid of being loved for the wrong reasons. Raymond and Chidinma were both wealthy, but they were also both terrified that their wealth would prevent them from finding genuine love. So they hid who they were, only to discover that who they really were was exactly what the other person was looking for. The beautiful irony is that they found each other not despite their deception, but because of their shared fear of being valued for the wrong things. Sometimes we think we need to hide parts of ourselves to be lovable. Sometimes we think our flaws, our wealth, our struggles, our backgrounds make us unworthy of genuine connection. But real love, the kind that lasts, the kind that builds something beautiful, that love sees all of you and chooses all of you. Don't chase status, chase sincerity. Don't look for someone who loves what you have. Look for someone who loves who you are. And remember, sometimes love is hiding behind a market stall covered in dust, teaching us that the most valuable things in life can't be bought, sold, or traded. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in love that transcends circumstances, don't just watch and move on. Share this with someone who needs to remember that genuine connection is still possible in a world obsessed with appearances. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories that remind us what really matters in love and life. Because at the end of the day, we're all just looking for someone who will love us for our soul, not our circumstances. And sometimes that person is closer than we think.